We are now 1 year away from Avengers, Doomsday, the event ending 28 years of cinema, dozens of movies, and hundreds of hours of TV shows. And let's be honest, it's become such a mess that most of you have either given up or forgotten everything, which is understandable. That's why I gave myself an impossible challenge, to make something truly unique. I reviewed everything, analyzed everything, and organized everything to build the ultimate Marvel timeline. From Marvel Legacy to X-Men, Fox, Netflix series, and the Sacred Timeline, we're going to merge everything scene by scene into a single unique story. This will now be your essential survival guide. The goal? For you to watch the finale as the greatest expert in the room. And today we're starting with the first part of a 4-video series, the one about the origins of the lore. So, get comfortable, put social media aside for a moment, and relax. You're with Kevin Bouckaert, the favorite theorist of your favorite Marvel historian. And together, we're retracing the greatest saga of all time. Roll the intro. The dawn of creation. Let's begin at the very start. Before the universe and even time, there was nothing. Then suddenly a spark, the Big Bang. Amid this chaos, the universe's 6 key components were forged: time, space, reality, soul, mind, and power, each embodied in a singularity that would later be called an infinity stone. These 6 stones then drift in untouched space, the silent start of all that will exist. In that same cosmic breath, the first primordial forms of life emerge, the Celestials, which are massive cosmic entities. The first among them, Arishem, created the first star and spread light throughout the universe. Their only duty was to sustain life. Each Celestial germinates in the core of a habitable planet and, upon its emergence, spreads life by destroying the world that carried it. A cosmic sacrifice enabling the birth of thousands of other systems. Thus, millions of solar systems composed of planets were born, including the 9 realms connected by the cosmic tree Yggdrasil, notably Midgard, Earth, and Asgard, the mythological realm of the gods and of light. A realm that, legends say, instantly destroyed the celestial seed that rested there millions of years ago. These Celestials created the Deviants, creatures meant to exterminate the super predators on worlds that harbor life, in order to allow civilizations to prosper and feed the Celestial buried within the planet. But the Deviants evolved too quickly, became uncontrollable and bloodthirsty. To control this chaos, the Celestials then created the Eternals, protectors of worlds against the Deviants. 2.5 million years ago, a vibranium meteorite crashed in East Africa. Its radiation altered the local flora and gave rise to an essential plant, the heart-shaped herb. 5 tribes settled on this land: the river, the border, the merchant, the mining, and the Jabari. Bashinga, by consuming the heart-shaped herb, became the very first Black Panther and unified the tribes of Wakanda. As humanity developed, some ancient peoples discovered and mastered magic. Agamotto was the first sorcerer supreme and founded the Masters of the Mystic Arts. During his research, he found a singularity, the Time Stone, and placed it in an artifact to channel its power, the Eye of Agamotto. To protect the Earth, he built 3 sanctums, one in New York, another one in London, and the last one in Hong Kong. But from light, darkness always arises. Chthon was the first demon to awaken, building a temple to inscribe his darkest incantations. Among them was a prophecy, that of the Scarlet Witch, a being who will rule or destroy the multiverse. From his work was born a forbidden grimoire, the Darkhold, a book of dark magic capable of corrupting anyone who studies it. In a neighboring dimension, separated from the world by a mystical veil, another threat appeared, the Host of Darkness, a demonic entity that devoured the souls of the living. The devastated populations united under the protection of the Great Protector, an ancient dragon who led them to drive the creature back behind the door of darkness. Talo rose around this sacred barrier, serving as a peaceful refuge and sanctuary. In 1500 BC, Arishem sent a new group of Eternals to Earth: Ajak, Icaris, Circe, Thena, Gilgamesh, Kingo, Phastos, Makari, Druig, and Sprite. On the Domo, they were tasked with preparing for Tiamut, the Celestial sleeping deep within the planet. They traveled through time, creating many mythologies, especially in Babylon, which became a fortress in 2988. Before our era, the 9 realms aligned in the cosmos. Malekith, leader of the Dark Elves, tried to use the Ether, the Reality Stone's fluid form, to plunge the universe into darkness. Bor, Odin's father, defeated him and hid this power between the realms. Centuries later, Odin became the king of Asgard. He had Mjolnir forged in Nidavellir, a divine weapon born from the energy of a dying star, and gave it to his daughter Hela, the goddess of death. Together, they conquered the 9 realms through war and bloodshed. But Odin eventually sought peace, while Hela only desired war. A battle broke out, the Valkyries were decimated, and Odin banished Hela to Hel, the Asgardian underworld. Around 1260 BC, the Hatut-Zerazi, Wakanda's war dogs, carried out their first mission. Noni, a former Dora Milaje, infiltrated the underwater complex of Nkati, a dissident who wanted to found a nation using Wakandan technology. She defeated her, left the Doras, and joined the Hatut-Zeraze. In 1200 BC, during the Trojan War, Bikai, a Zerazi leader, infiltrated the Greek army as Memnon. He fought with Achilles and entered the city in the Trojan horse. While retrieving a stolen vibranium necklace, he fought Achilles, his brother in arms, wounding his heel and inspiring the myth. Unable to stay in Wakanda after this act, he demanded to be sent back on a mission immediately. Around the year 0, 5 monks banished from a Nepalese fortress for misusing the Chi founded the Hand, a global criminal organization. To counter them, the mystical city of Kunlun formed an army led by the Iron Fist, who was able to channel Chi to become an unmatched warrior. Marvel through the ages, around 400 in India, Icarus and Circe marry under Gupta Empire rites, while a new sorcerer supreme, known as the Ancient One, is appointed. To extend his life beyond normal limits, this sorcerer draws on forbidden magic from the Dark Dimension. During the Middle Ages, the Chinese Shu Wenwu discovered the 10 Rings, mysterious artifacts of unknown origin. They give him remarkable longevity and fearsome combat power. Around these rings, he founded a criminal organization that would simply bear their name, the 10 Rings. In 965, the Frost Giants from Jotunheim, one of the 9 realms, invaded Tonsberg, Norway, to freeze the land. Thanks to the Casket of Ancient Winters, Odin, protector of Midgard, intervenes and leads Asgard's army to repel the invasion. He retrieves the casket but loses his eye in battle. He finds an abandoned baby, Loki, son of King Laufey. He decides to adopt and raise him. Loki grows up with Thor, the future ruler of Asgard. Odin also hides the Tesseract in Tønsberg, an artifact containing the Space Stone that allowed the Asgardians to develop the technology of the Bifrost. Thousands of civilizations exist beyond the 9 realms. Among them, 2 peoples have a fierce rivalry. Around the year 1000 on Earth, an interstellar war of unprecedented violence breaks out between the Kree, a militarized race led by supreme intelligence, and the Skrull Empire, a race of shape-shifting warrior aliens. In 1400, Wakandan agent Basha infiltrates Kunlun to recover a statue with stolen vibranium. On his way back, he's followed by Jorani, a woman he had cared for, who turns out to be an Iron Fist, capable of extracting the vibranium from the statue without damaging it. Basha and his superior hide the incident from the Wakanda Council and help Jorani secretly return to Kunlun. In 1521, the Eternals see the last deviants were destroyed. With the arrival of the conquistadors and the fall of the Aztec Empire, human cruelty convinces them to stop intervening in the future. They then separate and live among the people, waiting for new orders from Arishem. In 1571, these infamous conquistadors reach the Yucatan Peninsula and bring smallpox there, dooming Fenn's tribe. Thanks to a shaman-made remedy from a vibranium-irradiated plant, they survive but can no longer breathe outside water, and their skin turns blue when out of water. They are the first Talokanils, founders of Talokan. Fenn, who is pregnant, survives the transformation and gives birth to a hybrid child. A unique mutant who can live on land and underwater with wings on his ankles, Kukulkan, the feathered serpent. The conquistadors call him El Niño Sin Amor, and he will keep the name Namor. In 1693, in Salem, Agatha Harkness is accused by her own coven, led by her mother, Eva Nora, of practicing forbidden dark magic. Tied up to be executed, Agatha reverses the spell of her coven and absorbs their power as well as all their life energy, killing them all. Alright, let's start exploring the multiverse. In 1845, on Earth 10005, young James Howlett witnesses the murder of his father by the gardener Thomas Logan. Shocked, his mutation manifests itself as 6 bone claws emerge from his hands. He kills Thomas for revenge, and as Thomas dies, he reveals he's his real father. James flees with Victor Creed, his half-brother, and the two of them promise loyalty to each other. In 1868, on Earth 616, Ravonna Renslayer, sent by He Who Remains, leaves the TVA handbook at a young boy's house in Wisconsin. Victor Timely, a variant, is set to play a key role in a time loop created by He Who Remains, a Kang variant. In 1896, in Wakanda, Prince Tafari is tasked with retrieving a vibranium axe. There, he meets the last Black Panther, who has come from 5 centuries in the future, and she reveals to him that Wakanda will be destroyed by Annihilus' horde because of its isolationism. To change this fate, she convinces Tafari to let the axe be found by outsiders. This will lead to the events of the first Black Panther movie, the turn of the 20th century. The 20th century marks the emergence of the first great heroes, often in the context of global conflicts. As the Kree-Skrull War continues in space, our focus shifts to Earth. Still within the universe, between 1917 and 1918, James Logan and Victor Creed fight in the trenches of World War I. Victor sinks deeper and deeper into uncontrollable savagery. In the 1920s, on 6/16, an unbreakable friendship forms between two Brooklyn kids, Steve Rogers and James Buchanan Barnes, known as Bucky. As World War II begins in the late 1930s, Hydra, the Nazi regime's scientific branch, led by Johann Schmidt, emerges. In 1942, he invades Tonsberg and captures the Tesseract, changing the course of the war. That year, exiles from the Dimension of Noor attempt to return home and find a quantum bracelet with mysterious powers in the ruins of a temple marked by the Ten-Ring symbol. It's on the arm of a blue-skinned corpse, maybe a Kree. In 1943, the frail Steve Rogers is selected by Dr. Abraham Erskine to be the first super soldier for Project Rebirth. After gaining superhuman abilities, he becomes a propaganda icon and then leads a key mission to save Bucky Barnes. Under 107th Division. In 1944, on Earth 1015, young Eric Lenscher is separated from his parents at Auschwitz and tortured by Dr. Sebastian Shaw. His magnetic powers manifest themselves. The death of his mother crystallizes the hatred that will later shape Magneto. In 1945, on Earth 616, Bucky falls from a train and is presumed dead. Soon after, Steve confronts Red Skull, who is teleported across the universe upon contact with the Tesseract. To save New York from a bombing that would wipe out the city, Steve sacrifices himself by crashing the plane into the Arctic. Howard Stark recovers the Tesseract in 1946, but never finds Steve. After Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Fastos, who helped humanity develop, witnesses the results of his influence: atomic destruction. He is utterly devastated. Meanwhile, on Earth 10005, Logan survives the Nagasaki explosion. Thanks to his regeneration, even when his body is burned, he survives. He also saves a Japanese soldier who remains eternally grateful. In 1946, Peggy Carter is proven innocent. Howard Stark destroys Steve's last blood sample and co-founds SHIELD with Stark and Chester Phillips. In 1947, during India's partition, Aisha, Kamala Khan's great-grandmother, tries to flee to Pakistan. Chased by Najma, she dies, but her daughter Sana is saved thanks to a time intervention by Kamala from the future. The Cold War and the mutant schism. In the 1950s, on Earth 616, the United States attempts to recreate the super soldier serum using African-American soldiers as test subjects. Isaiah Bradley is the sole survivor of the injections. Sent to fight in Korea, he is then imprisoned for nearly 30 years to erase the program's traces and subjected to further experiments during that time. In 1962, on Earth 10005, Charles Xavier and Eric Lenscher team up for the first time at the CIA's request. They recruit a team of young mutants and foil a plan to start a third world war during the Cuban Missile Crisis. But when a bullet fired by Moira McTaggart ricochets off Magneto's helmet, it hits Charles in the spine and paralyzes him. This tragedy creates a mutant schism. Magneto forms the Brotherhood, while Charles starts his school for gifted youngsters. In the 1960s, we enter Earth 828, a retro-futuristic world without world wars or the Cold War, making it far more advanced. Richards, Sue Storm, Ben Grimm, and Johnny Storm, 4 astronauts, are hit by a cosmic storm on their first space mission. They gain extraordinary powers and become the Fantastic Four. 4 years later, they encounter Shalabal, the Silver Surfer from Galactus. The Devourer of Worlds seeks to capture Franklin Richards, the first child of Reed and Sue, who possesses extraordinary powers. The team repels him due to Shalabal's betrayal. In the 1970s, on Earth 616, the Winter Soldier becomes a ghost assassin for Hydra. At that time, he was likely the greatest destabilizer of democracies and regimes. In the 70s, in a 616 branch, Tony Stark and Steve Rogers, who came from 2023 in Endgame, infiltrate Camp Lahai to retrieve the Tesseract and Pym particles. Tony speaks with his father, while Steve glimpses Peggy. In 1972, Arnim Zola, recruited by the United States after the war, dies of illness, but transfers his consciousness to a computer system, secretly preparing Hydra's return like a virus within SHIELD. Let's discuss the biggest chronological problem in universe. 10,005, 1973 is the scene of a timeline split. In the main one, Mystique assassinates Bolivar Trask. Captured, her DNA is used for the development of the Sentinels, which leads to the annihilation of almost all mutants in the future. In this original timeline, in 1979 at 3 Mile Island, Logan undergoes the Weapon X operation, coating his skeleton with adamantium. He then confronts Weapon 11, a first experimental Deadpool, before Stryker shoots him in the head with an adamantium bullet, causing memory loss. This story continues at the beginning of the 21st century, in the year 2000, where the young Rogue, frightened by the fact that she is developing absorption powers, runs away and meets Logan. Attacked by the Brotherhood, they are saved by Cyclops and Storm, who take them to Xavier's Institute. Meanwhile, Magneto is planning something big. He plans to use Rogue's powers to operate a machine that will turn world leaders at a Liberty Island summit into mutants. The X-Men then foil the operation and save Rogue. Magneto is held in a plastic cell to stop him from escaping with his metal powers. 3 years later, a mutant named Nightcrawler infiltrates the White House and triggers a state of crisis. William Stryker was secretly manipulating the mutant, blaming mutants and leading an assault on the X-Mansion, where the X-Men live. He captures Professor Xavier and plans to use Cerebro, the machine that lets Xavier sense all mutants and humans worldwide. His goal? To eliminate all mutants at once. The X-Men briefly ally with Magneto to access the Alkali Lake base. Jean Grey ends up sacrificing herself to hold back the dam's waters and save her friends. In 2006, a laboratory reveals a cure for mutation, sparking a war of ideas. But that doesn't include Jean Grey's return as Dark Phoenix, a nearly all-powerful destructive entity. She kills her boyfriend, Cyclops, disintegrates Charles Xavier, and joins Magneto's Brotherhood. The Battle of Alcatraz then marks one of the last events of this timeline. Phoenix destroys everything around her with her power, and only Wolverine can approach her because of his healing factor. Jean comes back to herself for a moment and begs Logan to free her. He kills her, ending her suffering and the apocalypse that was underway. Events in this universe will fuel anti-mutant hatred, leading to an apocalyptic future. In 2013, in Universe 10,005, Logan lives alone, tormented by Jean Grey's death. He is found by Yukio, a young mutant who has the power to see people's deaths before they happen. She's assigned to bring Logan to Japan. There, Yashida, the man Wolverine saved from the Nagasaki atomic bomb, has become one of the country's most powerful men. But he is dying and offers him to end his immortality, secretly wanting his power. Logan then has to fight the Silver Samurai and Viper. He loses his claws in the fight and back in the United States, meets Charles Xavier, returned from the dead, and Magneto, who tried to recruit him. In 2023, the last X-Men attempt to escape the Sentinels, who are more deadly than ever. Kitty Pryde desperately sends Wolverine's mind into his past body to stop President Nixon's assassination. So we go back to 1973. After the events of Days of Future Past, Mystique finally gives up on her plan, which creates a new timeline different from the original and creates a brighter future for mutants. This is the new 10,005, up until the awakening of En Sabah Nur, also known as Apocalypse, the first mutant who attempts to move his mind into Charles Xavier's body. A young Jean Grey stops him before she unleashes her powers. Years later, in the 1990s, an incident changes everything. The X-Men go to rescue some astronauts and Jean Grey is struck by a violent cosmic force. She returns changed, unstable, and accidentally kills Mystique during a breakdown. The Debari, shape-shifting aliens attempt to exploit her power. Jean briefly regains control and takes their leader into space to release all her energy. In an explosion of light that seems to consume her, to the world she sacrifices herself and becomes a cosmic entity. But let's go back to Earth 616. In 1980, Ego arrives in Missouri to mate and produce an heir. He meets Meredith Quill and shows her a living extension of himself, an alien plant intended to colonize Earth. In 1987, SHIELD agent Janet Van Dyne shrinks and enters the subatomic realm to stop a Soviet missile. Hank Pym, believes her to be dead, while in reality she is sent into the quantum realm. In 1988, Meredith Quill dies of cancer and Ego sends Yondu to capture Peter. The Ravager, upset, disobeys and raises the child himself. In 1989, Hank Pym finds out that Stark and Carson are trying to copy his Pym particles. Furious, he hits Carson, quits SHI ELD, and vows to protect his technology. That year, Project Pegasus peaks. The Tesseract is studied there to develop new, revolutionary engines. Carol Danvers, a test pilot, is trained by Wendy Lawson, who is secretly the Kree Mar-Vell. During a crash caused by Yon-Rogg, Carol destroys the aircraft and absorbs the Tesseract's energy, gaining immense power. Captured, lobotomized, and brought to Hala, she becomes Verse, a Kree living weapon. The end of the century. In 1991, on Earth 616, Hydra activates the Winter Soldier. Bucky is no longer himself. His mind is reprogrammed, turning him into a cold assassin who blindly follows orders. He is then sent on a mission to assassinate Howard and Maria Stark and retrieve the samples of the super soldier serum they are carrying. This double murder will stay hidden for decades, especially from their son Tony. These doses will be used to create 5 new super soldiers for Hydra. The idea is to have several Winter Soldiers. However, they are highly unstable and will be cryogenically frozen to prevent use. Meanwhile, young Matt Murdock loses his sight in a New York chemical accident, a tragedy that sharpens his other senses. Misfortune strikes again. His father will soon be killed by the underworld. Nearby, a little girl, Jessica Jones, loses her family in a car accident. She survives after experiments grant her superhuman strength and resilience. Later, she learns her mother endured the same ordeal. A year later, Tony Stark, at only 17 years old, inherits the family business. After his parents' death, he transforms Stark Industries into a leading global weapons company. That same year, in Auckland, King T'Chaka reunites with his brother N'Jobu, who had helped Ulysses Klaue in his belief that Wakanda should open itself up to the world. Above all, he said it was to help oppressed black people reclaim power. The meeting escalates. T'Chaka kills his own brother and with Zuri leaves the place, leaving behind N'Jobu's son Eric, who would later be known as Killmonger. In 1995, a Russian spy family's cover is blown in the United States. Natasha Romanoff, Yelena Belova, and their fake parents, Alexei Shostakov and Melina Vostokov, steal Winter Soldier information for the Red Room, hoping to replicate the serum, but most importantly, the formula to control minds. Back in Russia, Natasha and Yelena are immersed in the Black Widow program of the infamous Red Room. That year, Carol Danvers returns to Earth and meets agents Nick Fury and Coulson. She learns the Skrulls aren't the enemies she was told, but refugees and war victims, and that the Kree Empire has been manipulating her from the start. Realizing that she has become their living weapon, Carol breaks free and reveals the full extent of her powers. She single-handedly destroys Ronin's armada, then goes to Hala to confront the Supreme Intelligence. An act that will trigger a devastating civil war in the Kree Empire, earning her the nickname the Annihilator. Before leaving, she gives Fury a device to contact her in emergencies. Fury loses his eye because of Goose, a Flurkin, and he then comes up with an idea that is not yet clear: the Avengers Initiative? From 1995 to 1997, the Skrulls, led by Talos, made a secret deal with Fury and Carol. They become an elite spy unit, in exchange for protection and the promise of finding a new home, a promise that unfortunately would never be kept. The Skrulls' secret invasion starts here in 1996 in China, when Wu discovers the mythical village of Talos. There, the guardian of the Sanctuary Gate confronts him and they fall in love. They will then have 2 children, Shang-Chi and Xu Xialing. Wenwu quits his activities, but in 2007, his enemies exploit this weakness for revenge. His wife is murdered and Wenwu falls back into violence, training his son to become a true weapon. That year, 9-year-old Mark Spector loses his brother in a drowning accident. His mother blames and abuses him to survive. Mentally, Mark dissociates and Stephen Grant emerges. We move from one tragedy to another, stopping off in the Himalayas. There, the Rand family's plane crashes. Danny Rand, the only survivor, is taken in by Kunlun monks to become the new Iron Fist. In 1998, Nick Fury meets Vara, a Skrull with whom he begins an intimate relationship. Time to introduce Earth 26,320. Blade, a daywalker who is half human, half vampire, hunts the creatures that infiltrate circles of power. He faces Deacon Frost, who tries to summon La Magra, the blood god. Blade stops him with an explosive anticoagulant, preventing an era of vampire domination. In 1999, on the 616, Sokovia is ravaged by war. And during an ordinary evening, the Maximoff family is struck. while the kids, Wanda and Pietro, survive, paralyzed by fear. For many days, confronted with a Stark Industries missile that didn't explode. Meanwhile in space, Thanos, a mad deviant from the planet Titan, travels the universe in search of destruction. He believes that randomly eliminating half the population is the only way to save worlds from starvation. He destroys planet after planet, and on one of them, he kidnaps a child named Gamora. She'll become his adopted daughter and one of his greatest weapons, the Multiversal era. In 2002, on Earth 26,320, a new vampiric virus creates Reapers who prey on vampires and humans. The vampire nation, completely overwhelmed by its own creation, is forced to call on Blade to stop the threat. He agrees and joins the Blood Pack, a squad of vampires originally trained to kill him. Together, they hunt the Reapers in the sewers and discover the outbreak was caused by vampire experiments to create the perfect soldier. Nomak, the first Reaper, turns on his creators and kills them. Betrayed, Blade confronts the Blood Pack and later defeats Nomak. It is then revealed that the vampire's secret plan was to use Blade as a model for a new race. That year, in New York, on Earth 96,283, Spider-Man is born when a genetically modified spider in Oscorp's laboratories bites the young Peter Parker. He slowly discovers his abilities and uses them for money until his Uncle Ben is murdered by a robber he could have stopped. The phrase, "with great power comes great responsibility," spoken by Ben hours earlier, now takes on its full meaning. Peter decides to become a masked hero and use his powers to help others. His first enemy is the Green Goblin, Norman Osborn, who is also his best friend Harry's father. Driven mad, Norman faces Spider-Man and ends up impaled by his own glider. Harry, on the other hand, is convinced that Spider-Man killed his father. In another universe, yes, again, on Earth 71,306 in Hell's Kitchen, the blind lawyer Matt Murdock, played by Ben Affleck, leads a double life as Daredevil, the nighttime protector of his neighborhood. He falls for Elektra, daughter of a powerful tycoon, but she witnesses her father's murder by a hitman, Bullseye. Matt seeks revenge, confronts Bullseye and the kingpin behind it all, but ultimately spares him. Elektra later becomes an elite assassin, trained by the Hand in her own movie. She tries to escape her violent life, but ends up protecting Abby, a girl whose family was massacred, while confronting her past masters and inner struggles. That's it, we will never come back to this universe. In 2004, Peter Parker, exhausted by the weight of his responsibilities, causing his powers to malfunction. Meanwhile, the brilliant Dr. Otto Octavius accidentally merges with his mechanical arms during an energy fusion experiment gone wrong. The Tentacles AI takes over and Octavius becomes Dr. Octopus. Obsessed with his project, he creates an artificial sun that could destroy the city. Thanks to Peter, he briefly regains clarity and sacrifices himself by drowning his experiment in the East River. Peter then reveals his identity to Mary Jane, while Harry discovers that Spider-Man and Peter are one and the same. As for Blade, yes, once again, the vengeful vampire set a trap for him by pushing him to kill a human disguised as a vampire, which leads to his arrest by the FBI. The Night Stalkers free him and reveal that the vampires have awakened Drake, Dracula, who is preparing a virus to exterminate humanity using his DNA. Blade and the Night Stalkers then launch an assault on the vampire's base. Thanks to an arrow containing this virus, Abigail and Blade take down Drake, and with him, all the vampires present. In 2005, in Universe 121,698, we relive a classic scene from the Fantastic Four. A space expedition goes wrong and 4 well-known astronauts are exposed to a cosmic storm. They return to Earth profoundly changed, but this time, their associate Victor Von Doom becomes a living armor. Driven by anger and jealousy, he confronts the team, but the Fantastics win. 2 years later, another crisis hits this universe. The Silver Surfer returns. But this time, it's Norrin Radd, the Herald of Galactus, well actually a gigantic cosmic cloud that's supposed to represent Galactus. You know the story. He threatens Earth, Norrin eventually turns against him and helps to repel him. It's time for another stop in our good old 616. In the mid-2000s, General Ross revived the idea of creating a new super soldier. Betty, his daughter, and Bruce Banner work on the project, but an accidental gamma rays exposure turns Bruce into Hulk. Frightened by his transformation, he vanishes and hides. In 2006, SHIELD tracks down Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff. Instead of eliminating her, Barton offers her a chance to join the organization. To prove her loyalty, she joins Hawkeye on a mission in Budapest to eliminate Dreykov, the Red Room's leader. Natasha thinks she succeeded in killing Dreykov but discovers that his daughter was also there with him. However, the bomb ended up killing neither of them. Clint and Natasha hide out for 10 days after that, creating the famous events of Budapest. And because 7 Earths weren't enough, here's an 8th one. The one of stuntman Johnny Blaze, Earth 21,347. In 2007, he sells his soul to Mephisto to cure his father's cancer, and his father was indeed cured. But thinking he was doomed, he dies in an impossible stunt performance, condemning Johnny to serve as Mephisto's new Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance, who came straight from hell. He faces Blackheart, Mephisto's son, and defeats him. Refusing to become just a pawn, Johnny ultimately chooses to keep his powers to fight the forces of hell. Years later, he will be found as a hermit, living in seclusion, haunted by the Ghost Rider's curse, which he seeks to free himself from. His solitude ends when monks recruit him to protect Danny, a young boy whom the devil Rourke seeks to use as a new vessel. He plans to transfer his soul into the child's body to regain his power on Earth. Johnny confronts Rourke's agents and finds out Rourke is the source of his powers, and linked to the Spirit of Vengeance. He stops the ritual, saves Danny, and purifies his curse, becoming a brighter, more heroic rider. To wrap up this multiversal chapter, let's go back to 2007 on Tobey Maguire's Peter's Earth, where Peter is preparing to propose to Mary Jane as their relationship begins to falter. A symbiote from space merges with his suit and enhances his powers at the cost of his personality. Peter turns arrogant, violent, and aggressive. Flint, Marco, who escaped from prison, falls into a particle accelerator and becomes Sandman. Involved in Uncle Ben's death, he then becomes Peter's target for revenge. Meanwhile, Harry Osborn attacks Peter as the new Goblin to avenge his father, but after a fall and amnesia, he ends up in the hospital. He even forgets Peter's link to Norman's death. While under the symbiote's influence, Peter distances himself from Mary Jane, exposes Eddie Brock's manipulations causing his firing, and begins flirting with Gwen Stacy. However, he eventually rejects the symbiote, which then finds a new host, Eddie Brock. Together, they become Venom. The symbiote allies with Sandman and kidnaps Mary Jane to lure Spider-Man. Peter faces them, joined by Harry, who learns the truth about his father's death and decides to help his friend. Harry dies during the fight, Flint Marco escapes after being forgiven by Peter, and Mary Jane and he get back together. Well, this is where our first part ends, guys. We have covered everything that happens before the rise of Iron Man and the start of the crazy MCU adventure in the 616 universe. And that's what we'll talk about in our next video next week. Same day, same time. So feel free to subscribe and leave a like and a comment to boost the algorithm, which will allow as many people as possible to get back into the MCU, and that's what we want. Well, if this video isn't enough for you and you want to have a perfect marathon, it's right here. In the meantime, stay curious. It's the secret to happiness. Bye.